Welcome back to April's Cozy Corner. Today, I want to talk about something that confuses a lot of people who have experienced emotionally unavailable or avoidant partners. One of the most painful and confusing patterns is this: they leave, they distance themselves, and then somehow they come back. And when they come back, it can reopen emotions you thought you had already buried. So, in this video, we're going to slowly explore why avoidant partners often return, what is actually happening psychologically when they do, and why their return doesn't always mean what we hope it means. One of the most disorienting experiences in relationships is when someone who created distance suddenly reappears. You may finally begin to move on. You begin rebuilding your emotional world. And then a message arrives. Hey, I miss you. Can we talk? And suddenly the past feels very close again. The mind starts asking questions. Did they change? Do they finally realize what they lost? Was the connection actually real? But the truth is, the return of an avoidant partner is often less about transformation and more about psychological patterns repeating themselves. Avoidant attachment styles are built around a deep tension. On one side, there is a desire for connection. On another side, there is a powerful fear of emotional closeness. When relationships begin to deepen, avoidant individuals often experience an internal alarm, not because the other person is wrong for them, but because closeness itself feels overwhelming. So they pull away. They distance themselves. They disappear. They become emotionally unavailable. But distance has its own consequences. Eventually, the absence of connection begins to feel lonely. And that loneliness can pull them back. There are several reasons avoidant partners often return. Not all of them mean growth. Sometimes they return because the emotional intensity has faded and the relationship now feels safe again from distance. Sometimes they return because they miss the comfort, attention, or stability the relationship once gave them. And sometimes they return because they believe they can re-enter the connection without truly changing the pattern that caused the distance in the first place. This is why many people experience cycles where someone leaves, returns, reconnects, and then withdraws again. It isn't always a new chapter. Sometimes it is simply the same chapter beginning again. For the person on the receiving side of this cycle, hope can become very powerful. Hope says, maybe this time will be different. Maybe they've grown. Maybe they understand now. Hope is not weakness. It is a natural human response to emotional bonds. But hope can also make it difficult to recognize when a pattern is repeating itself. Sometimes the return of an avoidant partner feels meaningful simply because it touches unfinished emotions. But meaningful moments do not always mean unhealthy patterns have changed. Many people who have experienced avoidant relationships describe a moment when the emotional fog begins to lift. They begin to see the relationship more clearly, not just through memories of connection, but through the reality of the emotional pattern that existed. They begin to ask a different question, not why did they come back, but does this dynamic bring peace into my life? Sometimes clarity arrives quietly, and when it does, the return of someone who once had power over your emotions no longer feels like destiny. It simply feels like a choice you are free to make or refuse. Some relationships feel powerful not because they are stable, but because they are unfinished. They leave questions behind. They leave emotions unresolved. And the human mind has a tendency to revisit unfinished stories. But not every story is meant to continue. Some stories return simply to remind us of who we once were and how much we have grown since then. Growth has a quiet way of changing the way we see the past. Moments that once felt confusing begin to make sense. Patterns that once felt like fate begin to reveal themselves as lessons. And the people who once had the power to shake our emotional world slowly become part of a story that no longer defines us. Time has a way of softening what once felt unbearable, not by erasing what happened, but by helping us understand it differently. What once felt like loss can begin to look more like clarity. Because sometimes the purpose of a painful connection was never permanent. Sometimes it was simply a mirror showing us the places where we needed to grow, the boundaries we had yet to discover, and the kind of love we would one day refuse to settle for again. And when we reach that understanding, something shifts inside of us. The story no longer holds the same weight. Not because it never mattered, but because we finally learned how to carry it without letting it carry us. Thank you for joining April's Cozy Corner today. I'm glad you are here.